Hello and welcome to News Central TV. I am Adebola Adedugba. The headlines. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken sees growing partner in Angola. Human Rights Watch alleges Burkina Faso military drones killed 60 civilians. Hondo State Governor Ayedatiwa dissolves State Executive Council, makes key appointments. And details shortly. News Central now at this hour begins in West Africa, where in southwest Nigeria, Hondo State Governor Lucky Ayedatiwa has nominated the former deputy clerk to the National Assembly, Olayide Adelami, as his deputy. The nomination followed the dissolution of the State Executive Council on Wednesday. A statement by the Chief Press Secretary to the governor, Ebenezer Adeniyan, said the name of the new deputy governor has been transmitted to the House of Assembly for approval. The governor has also approved the appointment of Tayo Oluwatui as a secretary to the state government. He also approved the appointment of Abayomi Olasonya as the chief of protocol. Both appointments take immediate effect. Earlier, Charles Oludare, a political affairs analyst, spoke to us on these developments.
Of the deputy governor that is, past due, so definitely this is expected. The choice is quite interesting, and I think, the current incumbent governor probably made a long play and a smart move in making his choice, because, that is also one of the beauty of, having the power of incumbency, because we have to understand that we cannot look at these appointments in a nutshell. We have to look at it with the view of what is going to be happening in the primaries in 2-3 months' time. So I feel like, yes, it probably came as maybe not so much of a surprise, but it's still a bit of a surprise picking someone from the same town as the late Governor Akeredolu, and then by doing that, keeping his cards to his chest. I think the current governor was a smart poker player in that regard with his choice. And this man seems to be, someone who is not a seasoned politician, so he probably didn't give himself too much trouble while giving himself time to, do the negotiations that are necessary for the upcoming election, because we have to know that he has intention, and the APC has told him there's no automatic ticket for anybody, so I believe it's in line. And also, dissolving the cabinet also was expected. Majority, almost 100% of a good percentage of the previous state executive council were not in support of him, and we can't act like we forgot all what happened leading up to the death of the former governor. So making this dissolution is expected. It shouldn't be immediately forgotten, but it's about time that he starts picking his own people, and it also gives him an added leg in the game, because he is competing with some of these people in the primaries, and he is also going to need support. So from my own point of view, politically thinking, he now has a few, juicy things to offer people that he might be trying to curry favor or support for in the primaries.
Justice Iyang Ekwo of the Federal High Court in Abuja has granted bail to the immediate past governor of Anambra State, Willie Obiano. He ordered that the former governor in the southeastern Nigerian state should be restricted to the court jurisdiction. He ordered the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission to deposit the defendant's travel document with the court registrar. Ekwo then ordered the registrar to notify the Nigerian Immigration Service of these developments. The prosecution counsel, Silvanus Dahir, had prayed the court to remand the former governor. He subsequently adjourned the case till March 4, 5, 6, and 7 for continuation of the trial.
Directors have landed properties within the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. Then his passport, international passport, travel document was seized and was with the commission. Anytime he had reason to travel, he will apply and it will be given to him. So the court essentially adopted the administrative bail conditions that the defendant enjoyed while on on administrative bail. Then additionally, since the court wasn't part of the previous bail conditions, we applied that the verification be done on the residential and business addresses of sureties. And like you know, bail is always a discretion of the court. While he was with us, to the best of my knowledge, he didn't flout any of those bail conditions. The important thing is that he should appear before the court for his trial, which is what the court emphasized.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has voiced hope for greater U.S. investment in Nigeria, but calls on Africa's largest economy to reassure investors that they can repatriate their funds. He says the U.S. has a growing interest in working with and investing in Nigeria. In Abuja on Tuesday, Blinken also praised economic reforms promised by President Bola Tinubu.
Now, what I'm seeing and what I'm feeling is that there is growing and significant American interest here in working in Nigeria and investing in Nigeria and partnering with Nigerians. And we see now the challenges that still need to be met to make sure that this is the most inviting business environment possible. And we talked about some of them, including last night, meeting with federal government leadership, including the ability to repatriate capital, including the ongoing challenge of...
In the meantime, the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has left Nigeria for final stop of African tour in Angola. Lagos State Governor Jide greeted Blinken on the tarmac before boarding his plane. Blinken toured the commercial metropolis of Lagos, where he visited a complex of IT startups and inaugurated a new U.S. space showcasing American technology. Blinken's motorcade passed through the teeming streets of the city of more than 20 million before entering the sparkling complex of 21st century technologies, where he was shown Nigerian innovations in software and virtual reality. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken will explore greater coordination with emerging regional partner Angola, capping a tour of Africa to champion U.S.-friendly democracies as global crisis mount. After years of estrangement with Washington during the Cold War, Angola has seen growing common ground with the United States, including by working together to address violence in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Blinken arrived late Wednesday in the oil-rich former Portuguese colony's capital, Luanda, and will meet with President João Lourenço on Friday. Angola is a linchpin of one of the signature of U.S. infrastructure project on the continent, the Lobito Corridor, which will connect landlocked Zambia, hailed by Washington as a model for its robust democracy, as well as a resource-rich DR Congo to Angolan port on the Atlantic Ocean. President Bola Tinubu on Wednesday departed Abuja for Paris, France on a private visit. Special advisor to the president on media, Ajorin Galale, in a statement said the president will return home in the first week of February 2024. On June 20, 2023, 3 weeks after assuming office, the Nigerian leader opened his foreign shadow in the city he last visited as president-elect, Paris, the French capital. You're live with News Central now. Let's take a short break. Stay with us. Thank you for staying tuned. The Special Advisor to President Tinubu on Information and Strategy, Bayo Onanuga, has said that the president has no intention to move the Federal Capital Territory from Abuja to Lagos. He explained that a recent controversy that has been sparked due to moves by the CBN and FAN to relocate the department from Abuja to Lagos has been misinterpreted in the situation. He argued that the movement of FAN to Lagos has nothing to do with moving the Federal Capital Territory, and that the conspiracy is fueled by dishonest, ethnic, and regional champions. Onanuga also explained that the movement of some departments of the CBN to Lagos should not trigger another outburst, noting that the departments are directly working with commercial banks, which are all headquartered in Lagos. And to talk about this, I'm being joined live on the news by Jide Ojo, a public affairs analyst. Good morning, glad to have you join me.
It's my pleasure. Good morning.
All right, let me start with your thoughts on the special advisor to the president on information and strategy, allaying fears that the president has no plans whatsoever to move the Federal Capital Territory to Lagos.
It will have been suicidal if he wants to do that, because FCT has been the host of the Federal Capital Territory since 1991. And it's not just done administratively, it's backed by a law. And until that law is repealed, Abuja remains the Federal Capital Territory for Nigeria. So I never for 1 second believe that Bola Tinubu will want to do that. However, the growing suspicion has been that relocating FAN to Lagos and relocating part of the offices of Central Bank to Lagos have been the two things that fuel this speculation. And this has been on even before the general election last year, that this was going to happen. But I doubt if any president, whether past or present, will want to toy with that kind of very volatile issue of relocating the country's headquarters back to Lagos. Lagos is already congested. Can't do that.
I was going to.
I about that, yes.
Yes, Jide, just to chip in very briefly, I was going to ask you just for summary's sake, just to backtrack a bit. I wanted to get your view on the movement of some departments of the CBN as well as FAN from Abuja to Lagos.
I don't think it's desirable. I think it's ill-timed. I think it's not appropriate. The justifications were just not there. How will you say, oh, you have to relocate some of the offices of Central Bank to Lagos because of oversighting? As I've said, I don't know whether it's on your channel or another channel that I get granted an interview a couple of days back. I say it's ill-timed, it's not well thought out, and then the ministers, heads of ministry, department, and agency should be very mindful of the political damage that this could cause the president, particularly in case he wants to contest for the second term. Because how could you say you are relocating FAN back to Lagos because of the traffic at the airport? This is a regulatory agency. It can operate from any part of the country. And what you just need is to have a very robust digital platform. I think it was on the conversation with your colleague that I had that discussion a couple of days back. And I think that even the CBN excuse, if you have a strong digital platform, if you have a robust ICT, you can run an office from any part of the world seamlessly. We saw that happen during COVID-19, where there was a lockdown and people were working from home. All you just need is your mobile phone, laptop, and you are connected. You are working from home as if you are working right in your office. For many of us, our home is our office, just to cut down cost of administration.
If I may, Mr. Ojo, if I may, because I still have a couple of questions for you. Now, there's been insinuations that this move of some department of the CBN from Abuja is strategic as a way of shifting political powers to Lagos State. Do you agree with that?
It may well be, but I think it's just going to hurt the presidency of Bola Tinubu. Lagos, as I know it to be, is very congested, and even many.
Okay, we'll try to reconnect with Mr. Ojo, hopefully in the course of this bulletin. But moving on to another. Mr. Ojo, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Let me just quickly get your reaction to Senator Ali Ndume's statement on this movement of some key departments, in the FAN, and also CBN. Now, he says, and I quote, there will be political consequences if the president tries it. What do you make of that statement?
It's a genuine threat. I'm not a northerner, I'm a Yoruba by extraction, and I know that there will be political consequences if this act of relocating offices to Lagos is not altered. I think Mr. President must make it very clear that none of his heads of ministries, departments, or agencies should try that. The North is hurting. I live in the North. I live in Abuja. I know how much insurgency and banditry has impacted economic activities in the North. So when you now move FAN to Lagos, and you recall that under Obasanjo administration, he moved Nigerian Port Authority back to Lagos. He moved the NIA back to Lagos. And then that is the suspicion the North is having now, that okay, what Festus Keyamo has started now and what Cardoso has started now is also to start in piecemeal, move some of the strategic ministries, departments, and agencies back to Lagos. And the president, being a former governor of Lagos, needs to watch it very clearly, because he rose to power on the vote of Northern Nigeria. Recall that he lost his home states, Lagos and even Osun, to PDP and Labour Party in the last presidential election. And these Northerners gave him massive support. So whatever will be seen, even if it's by an appearance or by way of perception, sometimes perception is reality. So I agree with Aliyu that there will be consequences, particularly in 2026, 2027, if the president does not retrace his steps and tell all of his heads of department agencies and all MDA not to relocate. If they want to establish fresh agency, then they can site it in Lagos or any part of the southern Nigeria. But to move the existing one out of Abuja or out of northern Nigeria back to the south is counterproductive. And it shows that the implementers are not paying attention to the political nuances and the perception among the northern Nigerians about this act that they have embarked upon.
Mr. Ojo, just very briefly, you have agreed that it's a genuine threat and there could be political consequences. But I'm wondering, what kind of political consequences are we looking at here?
You don't know who will be fielded against President Tinubu in 2027. And never say never. Don't think that an incumbent cannot lose election. President Tinubu won by a slight margin, the slimmest of all margins since 1999. But barely less than 2 million votes. He defeated his closest rival, Atiku Abubakar. So if they not perceive, and don't forget, there is a lingering issue of Muslim ticket that the South is not very happy with, and they will be demanding restoration of the secularity of Nigeria in 2027. So if the president does not then have the support of the North or overwhelming support of the North in 2027, it then means that he has shot himself in the foot. And he should not forget, just how many months ago in Liberia, an incumbent president, George Weah, lost election to Buakai. And it has also happened in Nigeria in 2015, where an incumbent president lost election to opposition. So the APC government should not take it for granted that because they are in power, they can do and undo. Many of us who are analysts who are condemned Buhari for relocating or for locating many heads of department agencies and ministries in Daura and many parts of the North. And we should not want, I do not want President Tinubu to follow in that suit. He should be very, very perceptive and very aware that this can have a backlash, political consequences, in which case the Northern Nigeria may not overwhelmingly want to vote for him in 2027 if he does not halt this relocation exercise.
And that's a fine place to leave it. Apologies, that's a fine place to leave it. Jide Ojo, a political affairs analyst, thank you for your expertise on the news.
Do enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks for having me.
Several youth from across 36 states of Nigeria have been trained on methods of effective oversight using the global I Follow the Money model as part of measures to improve transparency and accountability in the country. And this was during a capacity building and training session in Nigeria's capital, Abuja, which also saw the launch of the Project Trust, an initiative to build trust between government and citizens. Amadine Oyi reports.
In attendance were participants selected as part of a capacity building training on the globally acclaimed I Follow the Money model which seeks to promote transparency and accountability at subnational levels of government in the country. The training also saw the launch of the Project Trust, an initiative to improve trust between government and citizens.
Today, Connected Development has brought representatives from the 6 geopolitical zone in Nigeria for a retreat to build their capacity for the next 2 days, because we're starting a new project called Project Trust. We believe that from the aftermath of the campaigns and elections, we must deepen trust in our society, because the most important ingredient of every democratic society is trust.
The participants were called from across the 36 states of the Federation and aims to help the public build trust.
This project would help to build back public trust, galvanize public interest in ensuring better service delivery across grassroots communities in Nigeria. So we've selected people from community-based organizations, civil society organizations, and faith-based organizations that would champion Project Trust across their states and across their region.
The 6 states that we brought here today are representing different community of lives, different walks of life. Both the CDCs, media, all of them are present to see how they can build a community of practice that would ensure that citizens are part of governance processes.
Some of the participants highlighted their key takeaways from the training.
We learned that we must build a trust between the government and the citizens for them to be able to understand what this government is doing, to demand accountability, because where there is no trust between the government and citizen, there is no accountability and there is no transparency in the process.
We've learned that it is good for the government to be inclusive and not to leave any part of the citizens behind. So, and for us to ensure that everybody is included in our government, that public facilities are open for persons with disability.
The project also aims at galvanizing civil society organizations and community-based organizations through the formation of a community of practice in the 6 states of Kwara, Anambra, Bayelsa, Jigawa, Yobe, and Osun. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadine Uhi.
The Broadcasting Organization of Nigeria has called for regular collaboration with the National Broadcasting Commission towards rescuing the dwindling fortune of the broadcast industry. Born made the call when its chairman, Comrade Aliyu Abdulhamid Dembus, led his team on a courtesy visit to the office of Director General of NBC, Charles Ibuibu, in Abuja. The purpose of the visit was to engage in constructive discussions surrounding pertinent issues affecting the broadcast industry in Nigeria, with major focus on the digital switchover project, actively involving stakeholders in the industry to collaboratively explore viable solutions for a continuous improvement. The Director General of the NBC, Charles Ibuibu, emphasized that the Commission would continue to work with stakeholders in the industry, adding that he looked forward to having a mutually beneficial working relationship. Both parties expressed commitment to ongoing dialogue and collaboration for the betterment of the broadcast sector in Nigeria. And let's bring you a business-related story where Central Bank of Nigeria's CBN Governor Olayemi Kadoso says pump prices of petrol will be moderate this year as government and private-owned refineries begin. The CBN governor said the expected stabilization or reduction in fuel costs is poised to have far-reaching implications across various sectors, contributing significantly to overall economic efficiency and resilience. While Dangote Refinery has already commenced production, the Port Harcourt Refinery is expected to begin production anytime from now. He adds that the CBN, the Ministry of Finance, and the NNPCL have collaborated to ensure that all FX inflows are returned to the Central Bank of Nigeria to boost reserves accreditation. Kadoso described the naira, which exchanged around 1,370 naira to a dollar at the parallel market, as undervalued. And to talk about this, I'm being joined live on the news by Temitope Kolade, Senior Manager and Lead, ESG and Climate Change Services at Addison. Good morning. Glad to have you join me.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Now, what factors does CBN Governor Olayemi Kadoso attribute to the expected moderation in petrol prices in Nigeria for this year? And how do you think he anticipates it will impact various sectors of the economy?
Okay, looking through that story very carefully, would see that it's basically said to us that Dangote is already now refining in Nigeria, and we expect Port Harcourt refineries to begin operations soon. And the expectation is that there will be less pressure on the demand for USD to import petroleum products into the country. So it's looking at the future and it's saying these are the possibilities. Again, the question would then be how practicable are these things when we think about the fact that foreign exchange reserves in itself, for us to have it, it would mean that we would have been having to, export crude and would have had to earn foreign exchange from export of crude. If Dangote is producing in Nigeria, if Port Harcourt refineries is producing in Nigeria, what happens exactly to that portion of the crude that will be sold to either Port Harcourt refineries or Dangote from Nigeria? Do we earn USD for that? Given that the CBN itself has already told us in the past that you don't dollarize the economy, you don't begin to exchange products in Nigeria for any other fiat that is different from the Nigerian fiat, which is a naira. So these are the issues for me. But again, it depends on what numbers are being worked with by the CBN to come at the predictions that they have. But they are not so easy for me to see the feasibility where I stand today.
I hear you, Temitope, but could you elaborate on the collaborative efforts between the CBN, Ministry of Finance, as well as the NNPCL to ensure that all foreign exchange inflows are returned to the Central Bank of Nigeria?
Okay, we need to track back a bit and think about what used to happen during the last administration, the Buhari administration, when they basically said to us that we needed something like a single treasury account to ensure that whatever inflows are coming into the country come from within the same source. Some other issues that we've had, or at least we've heard about concerning the NNPC in the past, which is now the NNPCL, which had some funds that were purportedly not remitted to the federal government account. But in the long run, when it comes to the balance sheet of the nation, we would expect that, the NNPC carries a huge chunk of that. So whether there are cash remittances or not, they are in the balances. But again, maybe this is really about the NNPC and the CBN and the Federal Ministry of Finance working together to ensure that indeed we have a single point of remittance, and it's available for distribution. It's available to meet the needs for USD, for foreign exchange in Nigeria. It's so much that I believe the regulators can unpack for us as to what has been happening with the remittances and what has been done with it in the past. But I would think that what the CBN governor seeks to do is to ensure some more transparency in how the funds are being allocated, remitted, and of course, utilized to meet our foreign exchange demands.
Now, talking about the CBN governor, Olayemi Kadoso, why do you think he believes the naira is currently undervalued? And also, what coordinated measures on the fiscal side does he propose to expedite genuine price discovery in the near term?
Okay, I think it's not far-fetched that the naira is indeed undervalued, because what has happened in reality is that you would find very many people who do not have trust in the naira anymore, right? And so every chunk of naira that they have in their hands, they seek for other for the avenue to convert such to USD, and it puts more pressure on the naira, on the USD that is within the system, right? And the pressure then comes down on the naira as well, and it keeps going all the way down, right? So what that means is to say that there are a lot of slush funds here and there. There are no economic activities backing up certain activities that or certain stack of funds that people have kept in some places, and that puts a lot of pressure on our naira. What can be done differently? What are the things that he sees? I think again, it's so much about making us have enough USD to fund our foreign exchange requirements. Because our economy is import dependent, it means that at every point in time we have to import things, and when we are doing any importation, we're transacting with other nations, we need to buy some USD to make those transactions happen. But there are lots of USD that are not exactly being used, that are being stacked somewhere, right? And so there is a lot of activity that needs to be done, some house cleaning, some cleanups that needs to be done by the CBN, aside from ensuring that, of course, like you mentioned, the fiscal actions are taken, that we are having maybe people pay their taxes rightly so, and sometimes in the right currency as well, because the tax laws, for instance, will say to you that if you do transactions in USD, even though in Nigeria, you've got to make payments in the transaction in the currency of transaction, right? So
I'm afraid that's the most we can take on this edition of the news. Thank you so much for your expertise, Temitope, Kolade. Thank you once again.
Thanks for having me.
Coming up, 6 sentenced to death for 2021 Ghana coup plot. We'll bring you details of these and more when we get back. Stay with us. News Central now continues in West Africa, where 6 Ghanaians, including 3 soldiers, have been convicted and sentenced to death by hanging for their involvement in an alleged plot 3 years ago to overthrow the government. The men were arrested in 2021 while testing weapons at an old shooting range in Accra, and intelligence telephone taps led to a blacksmith shop where they ordered the weapons manufactured, according to court documents. They all pleaded not guilty during the trial. Police posted a heavily armed unit outside the High Court for the hearing and sentencing. The High Court, however, acquitted the police chief, Benjamin Agodzo, Army Chief Officer, Colonel Samuel Kodza Gameli, and 1 other junior military officer, Corporal Seidu Abubakar. Still in West Africa, Human Rights Watch says 3 Burkina Faso military drone strikes that the government claimed targeted Islamist fighters killed at least 6 civilians and injured scores more at 2 crowded markets and a packed funeral in Burkina Faso and Mali between August and November 2023. According to the organization, the drone strikes violated laws of war prohibitions against attacks that do not discriminate between civilians and military targets and with apparent war crimes. It adds that the Burkinabe government should promptly ensure independent, impartial, and transparent inquiries into the attacks, appropriately prosecute those responsible, and adequately compensate victims and their families. Government-controlled media had reported that all 3 attacks killed Islamist fighters and made no reference to civilian casualties. We head now to South Africa, where a Pretoria High Court on Wednesday had shocking revelations that Senzo Meyiwa's then-girlfriend and the mother of his child, Kelly Khumalo, ordered the Heat on the soccer star to be killed. Khumalo's name was dropped by lead investigator, Brigadier Bongani and Thi, while reading his second statement he deposed while investigating the murder case. According to Ginida's statement, after the murder, Khumalo failed to disclose 4 cell phone numbers to the police, and the numbers were discovered by cell phone analysts during investigations. The investigation revealed that she was linked to the accused number 3, Untobisi Nkube, and accused 5, Fisekule Unthule, through cell phone connection. Meanwhile, on Tuesday, the court also heard from Brigadier Ginanda that accused number 2, Bongani and Thi, was said to have been supplying hitmen across the country with guns and ammunition before his arrest. And to talk about this in detail, I'm being joined by Mpumelelo Zikalala, a legal analyst who joins us from Durban, South Africa. Good morning from here. Glad to have you join me.
Good morning to you, and also good morning to your viewers.
All right. Now, let's start perhaps with these allegations by one of the accused that Kelly Khumalo ordered a hit on her then boyfriend. What do you make of the statement?
There are two things which must be noted. Firstly, let's remember how these particular statements are coming about within a trial, determining whether the admissibility of the confession in which they've made. So I think what Brigadier Keninda was doing here was to say, this is what we're working on. These are the type of suspicions and the processes that we're engaged in, and this is how it came about that at the end of the day, we're in front of a magistrate conducting this part of the confession that you are talking about. So from the side of the court, they will say, yes, we're going to hear what you are saying, but we're simply going to focus on the confessions at this stage and not on the other involvement of other people, because that's not what the state is presented to us for assessment. However, it's going to be greatly used by the defense in this case, because they will then come back and say, how did you then investigate this particular matter with such important information? Shouldn't you have more individuals sitting in the accused box than the ones that you have now? And if that's not the case, what is the other evidence in which you are relying upon? And if there are any holes to be poked in the evidence currently, then they would want their clients to be released, because they would say, you haven't been able to prove beyond reasonable doubt that indeed these particular clients are here. You are even confused yourself in terms of the manner and the investigation that has taken place, because there are a number of people that you are implicating in the investigations. However, when it comes to the prosecution, you are saying another thing.
Right. Well, according to all the evidence available, gathered from those who were in the house, also, the accused, and also police statements, I mean, one cannot just imagine how that crime scene, happened to be contaminated with these. Do you see this case getting justice?
That's going to be very difficult, because at the end of the day, it's very clear that the police have simply failed in providing their duties, basic services, making sure that the crime scene is not contaminated is something that would be a basic requirement and a basic training that would be received by a police officer. So on that alone, that means that the evidence that you are taking to court is going to be contaminated. It's not going to be foolproof evidence, and the only thing that you're going to rely on is the evidence which is going to be provided by your police officers and all the other officials that are there. And even if themselves come to court and they are contradicting themselves with certain information which that have not been stated earlier, it then casts a very large suspicion in the manner in which the investigation have taken place. In fact, I think from what we've heard up until thus far, there are many instances in which a book can be written of how not to investigate criminal matters, taking into account the mistakes that have been done by the police in this stage. But it does not mean that any other information that has been provided by the state cannot be evaluated. It does not mean that the accused that are in the witness box are not supposed to answer to this allegation. Certainly, there is some sort of answering that needs to take place, because they are heavily implicated, or a reasonable individual would believe that they are implicated in this matter. Hence, they need to provide their alibi and provide their defense.
Okay, let's talk about accused number 2, and that's Bongani and Thi, who, according to lead investigators' statement, was selling weapons all over the country and has more than 30 pending cases. My question really is, how old was Ntanzi in 2014? I mean, when Senzo was killed, and looking at his age that time, is it possible he could have committed all these crimes? What do you make of this?
It is very much possible, because at the end of the day, even though the most important age when it comes to the criminal justice system in South Africa is the age of 14, it can be argued that the criminal element or the criminal liability did exist even though the age was younger. So what is important is that for an assessment and evidence to be brought to say, at the time of you committing these particular crimes, you are well aware that what are the actions which I'm doing, but most importantly, those particular actions are in contravention of the law. Hence, you ought to be prosecuted in that manner. It may be a defense in which the defense, his legal rep is going to come up with and say, it is irrational and it can't be concluded that at that time, at such a young age, this particular individual had access to so many resources, so many contacts, and would have been able to execute this number of things and crimes. However, if it is proved in any other matters and the history of his previous convictions is then brought in as part of the evidence, then the court can draw a reasonable inference to say, yes, it may be at the time that you were a very young man. However, you're a young man that had a very sophisticated criminal mind and participated in all these criminal elements, and one of them being the murder of Mr. Senzo Meyiwa. Another important thing to say would be, make sure that you are able to bring in one of the guns or the guns that killed Mr. Senzo Meyiwa must be closely linked to him, so that it can be proved that indeed he participated in that particular fact. If they can't do that, then the chances of him getting the state getting a conviction are very slim.
Well, thank you so much for your time on the news. Umpemelelo Zikalala, legal expert. Thank you once again.
In business, Nigeria's Central Bank Governor Laimi Kadoso anticipates a moderation in inflation this year and has speaking at the launch of the Nigerian Economic Summit Group and ESG Macroeconomic Outlook Report for 2024, Kadoso expressed confidence in the nation's economic stability. He emphasized the importance of stabilizing macroeconomic indicators such as inflation rate, GDP growth, fiscal balance, and exchange rate, highlighting their crucial role in fostering economic recovery and laying the groundwork for long-term economic growth. Kadoso also outlined the central bank's policy direction for 2024, prioritizing price and exchange rate stability to promote sustainable economic growth and safeguard livelihoods. Additionally, he mentioned ongoing efforts to address institutional deficiencies, restore corporate governance, and strengthen regulations. In North Africa now, Egypt's economic growth is projected to decelerate due to the devaluation of its currency, inflation eroding purchasing power, and impact of the Gaza crisis on vital foreign currency sources. The recent Reuters poll highlighted the Suez Canal's revenue decline of 40% in early January following sea attacks, alongside weakened tourism prospects due to the Gaza crisis. Moody's downgrade of Egypt's sovereign debt outlook to negative further underscores the challenges. The country's $3 billion IMF financial support package faced setbacks, prompting ongoing discussions to revive and potentially expand the arrangement. The poll forecast a GDP growth rate of 3.5% for the current fiscal year, down from earlier projections, with a subsequent climb to 4.15% in 2024 and 2025. Additional expectations for the Egyptian pound to weaken and inflation to ease were also outlined, reflecting the complex economic landscape. And finally, South Africa's consumer inflation decreased for the second consecutive month in December, dropping to 5.1% year-on-year from 5.5% in November, as per data from the Statistics Agency on Wednesday. This latest reading brings headline inflation closer to the midpoint of the central bank's 3% to 6% target range, specifically 4.5%, which the bank has indicated as the level it wants to see before considering interest rate cuts. Statistics South Africa reported that the average inflation rate for 2023 was 6%, lower than 6.9% in 2022, and that inflation is projected to average 5% in 2024. The South African Reserve Bank is scheduled to announce a monetary policy decision on Thursday, with all 20 economists in a Reuters poll anticipating that the main lending rate will remain unchanged at 8.25%. And that's offering on business news at this hour. Thank you for watching. I am Perpetua Fasami Peter. The news continues shortly. Bye for now.
And now to sports stories. Well, the group phase of the ongoing Africa Cup of Nations concluded. The Super Eagles of Nigeria have been drawn to face old rivals, the indomitable Lions of Cameroon, on Saturday at the Felix Houphouët-Boigny Stadium in Abidjan. The tie comes 40 years after Cameroon came back from conceding a 10th-minute goal to defeat Nigeria by 3-1 in the final of the 1984 AFCON at the same venue. Ahead of that match, Super Eagles defenders Bright Osai Samuel and Kenneth Omuro revealed that they eagerly look forward to the encounter.
Of course, now it's knockouts, you know. So there's no 3 points now. It's either you win and you're through, or if you lose, you're out. So we know that comes with pressure. But like I said, I think if you look at in our group, we have players with vast experience, you know, in this situation that we're in now. I think we have the players that can, you know, thrive in this situation. So I think if you look around the group, everyone's confident. Everyone's looking forward to the game. Me, myself, and you know, Cameroon are a very strong team. You know, they've got good players. But like I said, I think if we focus on ourselves and look at what we can do and how we can hurt them, then I think we have a very good chance of winning the game.
obviously Cameroon is a familiar face. They're a country that we've played several times before, a country with good players. We're focused, we're training, and I think by the time the game gets closer, we believe in the coaches to provide us with the best tactics to win the game. We're confident, after the last game, we said to ourselves, whoever we get next, we just have to keep to our game plan, take it 100%, and we can beat any team.
And that's all at this hour. But before we go, let's take a look again at some of the major stories. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken sees growing partner in Angola. Human Rights Watch alleges Burkina Faso military drone strikes killed 60 civilians. Hondo State Governor Lucky Aiyedatiwa dissolves State Executive Council, makes key appointments. Send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen and follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch us live on DSTV, channel 422, Star Times, channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Adebola Adedugba.